Welcome to the show. Today, my guest is Paul Karasik, and we are going to be talking about all things psychedelic and mind expansion. Paul is an incredible thinker. He's the founder of the Psychedelic Institute of Los Angeles. He's been building this great community through events called Awakenings. We have a new one coming up called Spring Awakening, and he's also an author. He's written over 9 books. Storied, fabled psychonaut. He's been involved in the psychedelic world all the way back to Ram Dass and Timothy Leary in the 60s. He's been a good friend for, at least 6-7 months as we've been getting to know each other. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on today, Paul.
It's a pleasure to be here. I love your work, and I think we'll bring something special today.
So I wanted to get started talking about your newest book, Getting High on Leadership. So tell me a little bit about what the premise, the through line, what does that mean for, is it only for businesses? Is it for communities? Is it a guide for life?
Yeah, well, the book stemmed, first of all, it's available on Amazon. There's also a YouTube series, which people are coming up and they're actually listening to it. 72-part series on tracking the 72 chapters in the book. They're very short, but they're that many. So if people want to get more into it, they can go on YouTube and check it out, or Amazon. I have about 25 or 30 years of experience in business as a management consultant. That was my primary work through my life, working with major companies, many of them Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, some of the biggest financial companies in the world, names you would recognize in a minute. And I was brought in primarily to work with management, leaders, and help develop them and their teams. So I saw a lot over the course of 20 or 30 years. And what really absolutely floored me was the lack of leadership amongst these people. Many of them were promoted, even in big companies, never really had any kind of real leadership development, management development. They took a class here and there, but generally they were terrible leaders. And, I saw a pattern happening in my work. I get a call, Paul, we want you to come in and work with our people, train our people, do some stuff with them. We'd feel that they could do better and so on. And at the bottom of every one of those situations was always the same thing. It wasn't them. It was the leader. And I saw that, and when the leader was good, the whole tone of the engagement changed. I wasn't there to fix the people. I was there to just enhance a good team. But that was rare. And so, I thought, boy, I've got to put like a little dot on this career of mine. And I think that this book, Getting High on Leadership, could be that, hey, here's what I've learned working with all kinds of different organizations about leadership. What's the missing component? Why are there so many bad leaders? I mean, I could ask you, Decker, how many great leaders have you known in your life? And you do podcasts, so you should come up with 20 or 50 right off the gate, right? How many could you count that you would say?
Look, everybody has their flaws. In terms of like getting together, leading a team, it's such a rare thing. It really is. It's an underdeveloped skill, and part of me wonders if it's a product of how our business culture has evolved. I think that at the core of leadership, at least from my perspective, obviously you're the expert, but I feel like we should be oriented around rallying a group of people to achieve a goal, right? That's the idea of leadership and rallying. But what we end up with, maybe you have a different perspective on this, but I feel like in the modern corporate workplace, it's a fear-based environment. So you have risk aversion and risk mediation being the primary driver of behavior, more so than positive things like encouragement and skills development and sharing in the successes when they come, and distributing the responsibility when things fall short. So that fear-based structure where everybody is concerned about, am I going to be the next person who's going to be laid off? Is this going to come back to me? Am I going to have to hear about this in the Monday meeting? Leads to a situation where you don't have good leadership. You have people that have survived well enough to become installed in the leadership position.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. So to put a short on that, not many.
Mm. Yeah.
You haven't seen that many great leaders. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's hard to name 5, 4, maybe 1, right? So I thought, what is the missing piece? What is it? What is it that go beyond? Did you do it, get it done, or you're going to get punished? And get it done, you get a reward. And just that, what goes beyond that ancient carrot and stick management philosophy? And when I realized that, my life's work is the one that goes beyond it, and that's psychedelics, our consciousness. I put them in the same class because psychedelics gives us access to higher consciousness. And what's missing from those people is not necessarily psychedelics specifically, but higher consciousness. That you can't beat people into caring, that you can't punish people into being motivated. You know, that all these tools are counterproductive. And the only tool that really works is consciousness, to being aware of the other person, to listen to them, to, when they fail, not to be angry, just say, I understand. It's just not, you can't deliver on what I'm asking you to, and that's okay. And let's move on and not make them wrong or less than or whatever. But it's consciousness. Wouldn't you say that separates a great leader? I would say there's a few. I've had a few, and we're still friends today with those guys. We still talk, and they bring a certain kind of awareness of the person who reports to them. They don't treat them like a them. They don't treat them like an other. Either they develop a team spirit, we're all in this together, or just a collegial atmosphere with them, that they're going to support them. They take an interest in what the person's doing. They take an interest in their ultimate goals. Where do you want to be 5 years from now? They do those exercises that people learn in management classes. They're doing them. They're not cosmic. They're not enlightened. They're just simple questions. You're 23. Where do you want to be when you're 28? Because I can help you get there. And that inspires people. Every study done on management has shown one thing irrevocable, that's undeniable. Money is not the number one motivator of employees. That by far, it's not the number one motivator. So why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? And they find these other things are much more recognition, number one, career development, number 2 or 3. Opportunity to expand and I guess the word just expand as a human being. A chance to grow, not necessarily even as career was, but grow as a person. That they wanted to keep the job, and that's what the book's about. And it's broken up into 3 sections called set, setting, and integration, kind of like a psychedelic experience. So set is your mindset, what you bring to consciousness. Setting is all the logistics of leadership, and there's a lot of them. And integration is how do you put them into action and manifest them with your team, in your own life, and so on. The book was definitely inspired by microdose. There's definitely pretty much written on a microdose and psychedelically inspired kind of viewpoint, and I would just sit and contemplate certain things and allow downloads in real terms. You don't have to ever have smoked pot or done a psychedelic to get a lot out of the book. It's because consciousness is consciousness. You don't own it. I don't own it. It's just consciousness, and it's your consciousness, and my consciousness is just not unique to us, right? It's universal consciousness that we're talking about. So that's how the book evolves. It's funny, most people that are drawn to the book are pretty good leaders. So I don't know if I'm going to change that. You know, they want to, yeah, getting high on leadership. Wow, what a great title. I love it. And yeah, that's so true. You know, and they read the book, and it's written like Zen koans, so, or poems. I'm a songwriter, so they're really actually kind of written like songs without choruses in them, but all verses and some bridges. So it's a very unique book, and I'm very proud of it. I think it's I think people would read it. It could help to change the. I always wanted to go to Harvard Business School with the book and talk to them there, you know, or Wharton or something, and because they never talk about this stuff, the most important thing, and they never. It's never. There's some ancillary. I shouldn't say that. There are some discussions at the highest level about this stuff, but it should be talked about more.
No, I agree. My father-in-law, late father-in-law, he went to Harvard Business School, and it's very interesting his mindset about some of these things when he was with us. Julia, my wife, she went for a project management postgraduate study program, and one of the things that she came away with from that, this is before I met her, but what really turned her off was that they talked about people, human beings in the workplace, really in terms of they would use phrases like work units or resources, the dehumanization of these processes. And that's what's being taught to people. And I'm not like, I love higher education. I've been a professor at different universities. I love the idea of college, but sometimes I think these ingrained systems, these interests that exist, sort of force good leaders into bad scenarios. And I'll give you an example of this, Paul. So I like to think of myself as a good leader. Other people, look, everybody's up to their own opinion on it, and everybody can always improve, right? But one thing that I would always say when I worked in a production company here in Los Angeles, and I had a lot of people who were working underneath me, it was a scrappy kind of environment, a startup kind of environment, like people would say. Even though it was an established company, they had that startup mentality. So that meant that underneath my purview were people with a lot of different kinds of tasks and processes and things. Some things I had greater insights into and greater experience with than others. But I was leading all these people, and I would tell them across the board that I only have one job at the company. And that job is to make sure that they have what they need to do their job, and that I was not going to micromanage them and whatever, but they had to have that free flow of information. They had to tell me, look, if it's time, if it's money, if it's sometimes an interpersonal problem of some sort, if it's some kind of like something going on in their personal life, they need to have that freedom. They need to have that ability to come to me and understand that I'm going to be listening to them so that I can help them do whatever it is that they need to do. Because the task is theirs, but me making sure that all these things working in concert, like the conductor of an orchestra, that is my part in this. And you'd be very surprised at the pushback that I would get from the C-suite and from the people underneath me, not because the people didn't like what I was doing, but because they were afraid to share what they perceived as failures with me. And the people in the C-suite were frustrated that I was treating people like humans. So when you're in that position, I think in your consulting work, you probably run into this a lot. How do you help a good leader to overcome those institutional barriers, even if they themselves are open to these ideas?
It's hard. It's difficult. You know, I found workarounds. Um, Bad managers, especially in sales. I trained and coached a lot of really high level salespeople, people who make 1 million, 2 million, 3 million a year in sales, and the average manager never really understood motivation at all. I mean, like what upper management wants is numbers, but how do you get those numbers? That's the question. And it's not by whipping people and saying, you got to get better numbers. You got to get your better numbers. You got to see better numbers here. That doesn't get you there. And upper management doesn't know it. So I would do workarounds where I would have the people, these high-powered salespeople, lying to the manager who I was also coaching, because I wanted to put the numbers. I wanted to show our approach to sales and management. You make more money. That's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why I'm talking, because you're going to make more money. So that's you, I knew we would make more money. And then when you're making more money, they go, well, they're doing what I said. And I go like, no. Oh, now I have a choice. Make them do what I'm saying and sell less, or let them do what I'm saying and sell more. They would go with the more and just kind of let it slide. Like they would say, like, I'll give you an example. They would say, like, everybody's got to make 300 calls a day, or 100 calls a day, or 20 calls a day, or 10 calls a day. That's what's demand. And if you don't, you get this, that'll happen, that'll happen, that'll happen. All this bad stuff is going to happen if you don't make those calls. So I would find ways for them, because I didn't want them making 100 calls. I wanted them making 10 calls to the right people. That's what I was training them on. It had nothing to do with 100 calls. That's just a bad management practice, like you were talking about. That's all they know. They don't know consciousness. They don't understand consciousness. So if you said, hey, this way of being a more conscious prospector, calling only 10 people, but killer people and not 100, no, we got to have the numbers. You got to have the number. You know, you got appointment word. So we would lie. And it was funny, right? Because I'm talking to the guy, and then I'm talking to the other guy. Well, I don't know what his numbers look like, but he's killing it this quarter. You know, like I wouldn't complain too much, but you know. And then we would make up numbers. We would, you know, we'd fudge numbers, and that's the way I found the workaround. Right? And I would tell him lie. You know, I was like. I wouldn't call it lying. I would just say bending it, you know, shape it. I wouldn't encourage lying, but how do we work around? You understand what I'm saying? Like, well, I only made this many calls, but I did this, so that counts towards that, and you'll get points. So somehow they can rationalize it out. So it's a system built for non-achievers, right?
Mhm.
It's a system built for people that you got to stand over with a whip, and that's nothing that I'm interested in being involved with. So I don't teach that, because I don't want to be involved with that. And that's not management, and that's not motivation, and that's not anything. It's just haranguing people and making it a very nasty environment to be in. Uh, all my self-worth is I made 30 calls today. Like, how would it make you feel? Like, why don't you make that person feel good about themselves, and then they make 40 calls? That's what we did. They would call more. They'd call after 6 o'clock. They'd come in early and get the guy in the morning. You know, they were motivated. They were motivated. So that's how I found. Uh, and then the book and training up at that level, trying to get to them and say, don't you see what you're doing is not working? Try this other stuff. It's messy. I get it. It's totally messy. But what you're doing is not working. You're churning through people. It's costing you more. Replacing an employee is $500,000. A middle management, that's years ago. I think it's more than that now, but I'm sure it's at least $500,000, because he didn't have his numbers. Now it's cost you $500,000 because he didn't hit his numbers. So it's practical what I'm teaching. It's not just some theoretical, let's be nice thing. It is nice to be nice, but in the
I think
end.
I think it's also a little bit like, in its own way, it's a bit subversive, right? Because I like to think of the Western office. Oh, you know what? I'm going to say the Eastern office. The way the business culture seems to have transcended to be, it's very universal at this point. Um, those cultures are sort of microcosms for the larger mechanisms of society. And what I often see with people who enter psychedelic spaces, spiritual spaces, even getting as basic as like people who go to these yoga retreats, and a lot of them come from the corporate world, right? They come because they are trying to escape. They're trying to find some sort of mental way to rebalance themselves or recharge themselves so that they can get back into that environment. And what you're doing, it sounds like to me, is you're saying, "Oh no, no, no! This shouldn't be an escape. This should these ways of thinking should replace some of the ways of thinking, if not all of the ways of thinking, that are making these spaces toxic to begin with. These It should be more holistic." Is that a good way to read what you're doing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's it exactly. That they need to be open to it, which means they have to take leadership serious. And I think a lot of them just treat it as a stop along the way to get to where they really want to get to. So they just do whatever, and I'll get through this, and then get through playing politics, get to my next step, because nobody knows what this is about anyway. So they don't even know how to rate me, other than in sales by numbers, but other than that, and those can be deceiving both ways. Uh, so that is appearing better than you are, or actually being worse than you appear. The numbers don't show anything. I asked a guy once, I said, "Who's your best salesperson?" And again, high level people. He said, "Do you want to know the best salesperson or the one who makes the most commission?"
Mm.
And I thought, wow, that's pretty astute. Because really the best salesperson, his numbers didn't reflect it, because it's a new territory. He didn't develop it, didn't have enough time. He's but he's the better salesman, and eventually he's going to show that. But the other guy's numbers were better. You see what I'm saying? So
Mm.
they're not measuring by the right criteria in that sense. I don't know if
Yeah,
that
that too. I
answers
mean,
your
there's also
question.
a uh, something that I've done recently. I have this idea where I haven't put a lot of this into action. This is sort of for my community with Mental and Phantom Astronaut, and all the people that are following me. I've noticed here in California, especially, that people are aging up and they're not able to achieve things like home ownership. So we've been trying to figure out different ways that we can develop co-living spaces and arrangements and things that people can feel some sense of stability with. And through that process, one of the things that I did is I got a real estate license because I wanted to better affect how this project can move forward. And I'm looking at those materials. This ties back to what you were talking about sales, because so much of that examination is about sales and how to do it and this and that and the other thing. And I'm getting all these mailers, and it's so hyper competitive that sometimes I wonder. I start calling some. I'm not going to mention names, but I started calling some of my friends that actually sell real estate professionally, who've gone through that process, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's really bad in the office because the highest earning person will sometimes, not every time, but sometimes be doing things to undermine or undercut the other people in that office. So instead of having 5 real estate agents that are selling $1 million, uh, per month or year, whatever it is,
Hmm.
you end up with one that's selling 2 million, and then the other ones are selling, $200,000. It's just like numbers for a thought experiment. So the entire organization is poorer because the success of that one person is coming at a price for the team.
Right.
So I
That's
think that
common.
kind of, Yeah. I think that kind of
Hmm.
illustrates a little bit what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's common. Those kinds of things.
Mm.
Um, Again, it's lack of consciousness that they don't see it. Uh, they don't see the bigger picture. A guy's a killer producer. Uh, he's responsible for 50% of the sales on the team. He comes in late every day. Bad manager, let it slide. Good manager, it's a sit down. There's
Mhm.
10 other people here. They're all here on time. What does it say to them when you show up at a quarter to 10 instead of 9? What is it saying about me when you do that? That I allow that? What's it saying about integrity when I that? And I'm sorry if you can't show up at 9. I know you're responsible for 60% of the sales, but I think you know what's going to happen.
So it sounds like some of these things about how to expand your consciousness in that sphere are really fundamental. They seem like they're second nature to me. They're probably, even though they came through careful consideration for you, they're probably second nature to you too. But it always baffles me that it's not second nature to most people, because a lot of the things you're talking about seem like it boils down to basic respect, the ability to feel like you can rely on other people and be relied on. It sounds like these are core parts of community building that human beings had been doing inherently to survive since before time was recorded. And it feels in many ways like these systems that we have built for ourselves are slowly stripping away these basic survival instincts from us and making us less productive and more toxic.
Well, when the Industrial Revolution happened in the 1800s, they didn't know how to deal with this whole thing. So they just relied on the military structure. And that's what we have today, a command structure. If somebody's on the boss, he's the general. He tells the lieutenants what to do. Lieutenants tell the sergeants what to do. Sergeants tell the people on the field what to do. That's the system that we inherited. And even though it doesn't work, and so what you were saying, I think I just want to go back to that, is that what's missing is the caring. And that's where psychedelics can revolutionize organizations and our lives in that sense, where now I'm relating to you as a tool in my own uh, particular selfish or whatever desires for myself. You're a piece to that puzzle, and therefore you're a thing. You're not a person. You're a thing. You're something that's going to either help me or impede me to get where I want to go. And that is a faulty premise. You're not somebody else. You are me in a different clothes. But underneath, and that's what psychedelics show us, if used properly, that that connection between you and me is we're the same. And then we get these bodies that say we're different. And so when we rely on the external, oh, you're this, you're that, you're gay, you're straight, you're black, you're white, you're Jewish, whatever, we see differences. But the truth is that there is no difference. And when you feel pain, it's the same pain I feel. And when you're afraid, it's the same fear I feel. You don't own that fear. It's fear. It's human fear that we're both accessing through our own humanity. And so this consciousness, how can I treat people like things once I see what psychedelics allow us to see? I can't. I mean, I can and I will because it's a default mode network. But the truth is, I can see it a different way now. Once I'm conscious of it, I can see it as like wait a minute, let me try to understand what this employee is talking about. Let me understand their conflict. Not, we got to get it done and you got to work late and da 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 da. Like, let me understand what they're talking about. Let me care about them first. You know, people say, I always say, like, the most important thing you develop when you work with somebody or you're a leader is for people to care. Because once they care, they make all the right decisions and they become leaders. So the only thing I have to focus on is how do I make people care about my vision, about the project, about this company, whatever it is? How do I make them care? And the answer is very simple, isn't it? I care about them.
Hmm. I look at society. One of my academic pursuits was social psychology, and I look at everything as a series of games. And when I say that, I don't mean that they're trivial. I mean that they are a rules based system with outcomes and participants that are playing roles and deciding what are the risks and rewards and all that sort of stuff. So I'm using game in the academic sense, and I wonder sometimes if the utility of psychedelics is to allow us to recognize the game. I feel like there are people that either haven't studied this or haven't had the interest or haven't had the opportunity to be exposed to this, where they realize that there is an opportunity to just close the game and put it back in the box and then pick a different game. They feel like they are trapped within Monopoly or whatever, game that they're doing.
Mm.
And I I feel like we're not necessarily, born with this sense of immersion inside of these systems, but when we get too fixated on them, we we end up only looking out for ourselves as players in a competitive environment. We're not looking at ourselves holistically. And if we go way, way, way back to those early experiments and things with LSD, like the old CIA films, right, where they would record
Mhm.
people and they would dose them, and you'd watch what they're doing, and they would. There was this one that I really love where it's she's like a housewife and she's talking about like, oh, I can see all of the energy in the air and the molecules, and I just feel like we're all just in here together, we're all connected, and that really, I think that reaction that people were having to psychedelics of recognizing another order of thinking outside of the game from which many
Mhm.
powerful systems and people were benefiting, that became a demonization campaign. And now that we're living in an era where these benefits that you're talking about are being more widely recognized, there's pushes to have legalized substances
Mhm.
like psilocybin and things like that, especially here on the West Coast, where we're changing laws and opening up to these legal frameworks where that's more accessible. Um, do you believe that's making headway? The idea that we can break the ego, the idea that providing people with these tools is a benefit to society, whereas over the past half century, there's been an active campaign to say no, this is absolutely destructive to society.
Right. Well, it's all about programming, and we've been programmed in a certain kind of way. Like war is inevitable. People are always going to kill each other. Um, you know, it's overcoming that program. That's why in the '60s, people threw rocks at us. They demonized us. They called us, you know, what was it? Love it or leave it. You know, you couldn't just love your country and criticize it when you think it's doing wrong. It's love it or leave it. It's black and white. You're nothing. What you're saying is bad. Uh, you're anti-American. I mean, and they saw the power of seeing through the matrix with psychedelics, and it terrified them that people could think of them for themselves. And that's why they were made illegal. Nobody's ever died on a psychedelic in the history of the world. Nobody's ever. Let's look at alcohol. Let's look at heroin. Let's look at fentanyl. Let's look at cocaine. Let's look at pills. What other drug could claim what psychedelics do as far as safety? Nobody's ever been addicted to a psychedelic in the history of the world. Nobody, not a human being. So they made it sound like we were going to jump off a roof or walk into the ocean and never come back. Nobody's ever been. In fact, there's very few people that have ever been hurt on psychedelics. It happens. They would have gotten hurt without the psychedelic, just the math of getting hurt. But anything that looks like alcohol, no, it's not. It's zero compared to alcohol. As far as its danger physically, man, I'm afraid I'll never come back. Guess what, honey? You're coming back. Everybody comes back. That whole bullshit thing, I'm never coming back. And I've been with 10,000 people and we all came back. 20,000 people, we all came back. 50,000 people in Golden Gate Park, we all came back. Guess what? You come back. And I haven't met anybody that didn't come back. Usually the people who they say didn't come back were schizoid, schizophrenic, dual personalities, manic depressants, all kinds of, not normal people. I mean, whatever normal is, but like regular people with normal neurosis. No, it's always some. And that prejudice is what the Psychedelic Institute is all about. Not fighting it, but creating a new view, creating a new approach, creating a current, realistic, truthful approach to psychedelics. And that's our major work. Why we do events and why we speak out and why we encourage people to look at this stuff, explore it, learn about it, educate themselves, see if it could work for them. And that prejudice is endemic in our culture to this day. I meet them every single day. I would love to do ayahuasca, but I'm afraid I'll never come back. I hear it every day. Honey, everybody comes back. I'm sorry. Even when you don't want to come back, you're coming back 6 hours later, 4 hours later, 8 hours later. But you're coming back. Same old mess you went with. You're coming back. Yep. So marijuana is even worse. I mean, cannabis is like the drug of the lowlife. The scum smokes pot. The derelicts, the junkies, the musicians, people like that, they smoke pot. The dregs of our culture, the washed up, the people who don't get anything done, sit around on a couch all day, that's who smokes pot. And everybody believes it.
It's so interesting. I think it's about systems of control, right? And oftentimes the villain, the antagonist to power isn't necessarily an equal power. It's a question. And I feel, look, some people have the ability to access, or I'm going to say higher consciousness. I don't mean it necessarily in the spiritual sense, but the idea that you can get outside of these frameworks that we were talking about. That's how I'm using that term. And you can ask questions. We were saying before the show started, remember, like from the 60s, question everything, right? And some people, it takes a little bit of a tool, training wheels, right? And psychedelics often provide those training wheels, even if it's only one experience with psychedelics. It shifts their focus because now they have experienced something that they did not feel that they could experience. They left the system. And so if that's let's say that you are in a fundamentalist evangelical church, right? when you start to question and you go, wait, some of these, what you're saying up on the pulpit, that's not even congruent to some of these things that are in the Bible that you're telling me to read here. So they don't want to answer the question. They go, oh, well, why is it? I went on this, I took a mushroom the other day. Oh, well, that's because you're a degenerate. That's because, demonizing
Mm-hmm.
the questioners is
Mm-hmm.
really the modus operandi, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But the thing about psychedelics is it's out of the bag, and there's nobody's going to put it back in. It's like there was an analogy about thoughts. If you went up to the highest mountain and you had a pillow, and you broke that pillow open, and all the feathers went out to the universe, bringing those feathers back, the things that are happening with psychedelics, you'll never. It's out there. The feathers have flown, and you'll never bring them back, and that is encouraging for me. Uh, but we need more leaders, more conscious leaders, whether with psychedelics, without psychedelics. We believe that we need a nuclear bomb of consciousness. It's not just, hey, it's a nice thing to do, it'll make our lives more meaningful. Maybe there's a little, no, we're at a crossroads right now of self-destruction. There's no doubt about it. I mean, between AI being smarter than us, between leadership that is most corrupt that could any leadership be, and our ability to destroy ourselves it's never converged like this before into one thing, right? In my opinion, and I've seen a lot of crazy times, riots in the 60s, and we've had, I don't know, I've lost count of wars in my life. I mean, I just don't even I don't even know like how many there have been since I've been alive. I've watched not just our own, but all over the world, in Africa and Southeast Asia, and millions of people. Like every time, like millions of people killed, murdered, like millions. Like uh, it's not going to be done through meditation. It's not going to get there through prayer. It's not going to get there through affirmations. It's not going to get there through mantra. It's not going to get there through studies. The only hope is psychedelics. You
It's
see what I'm
interesting
saying? It's not going
because
to get
I
there by
do.
me going into a cave, and I've done all that shit. I've done it all. I've done week-longs, no talks, no food. I've done Buddhist. I've done Hindu. I've done silent. I've done everything you could do to get there. And there were moments in all those experiences that it sort of appeared or momentarily appeared, but nothing compared to psychedelics. Nothing.
Now, that's the thing, though, right? Like looking at these retreats, pathways, whatever you want to call them,
Mm-hmm.
the a lot of people look at it through the lens of these systems that we've been talking about. They look at it
Mm-hmm.
in this commodification system. They look at it as I'm going to Disneyland for the weekend. It's an escape, right? It's a momentary, it's a
Right.
vacation, it's a hatch,
That's
right?
right.
And when you are approaching it through this idea that it's going to be something where you're going to be able to shed yourself and your access to material reality and the dangers of these systems that we have for a weekend and then recharge and then come back and still continue to actively participate in those systems until your next retreat, right? That's the complete wrong way, in my opinion, to look at this stuff. And that's why I
Well, to
love
me,
what you
yeah,
guys are
yeah,
doing at the Institute.
yeah. That's the Burning Man approach. I work a straight job. I'm totally in the matrix. I go to work at 9. I come home at 5. Maybe I'm single, whatever the case may be. I go to Burning Man and I'm free, and I'm free, and I see what life is like without any encumbrance of money or this or that or whatever it is, and I'm living the artist life. And then they go back to the same matrix. And what changed? What really happened? What was it that was so great? If you're the same person, and that's my quabble with Burning Man, by the way, is like, no, I want to live Burning Man every day. I'm an artist. I write, I sing, I play, I produce, I, I do creative events. I do, it's just like, I don't want like one weekend in September and I get to freak with freaky clothes and then go back to what? What? And so we have a name for that in psychedelics, and you know the name, it's called integration. If I don't integrate, then what is it? It's just a trip to Disneyland. And it's a wonderful day. And, that's not what we're about. That's not what the Psychedelic Institute is about at all. It's not about that at all. It's about changing the way we live our life, changing our thinking, change an end to suffering, and an end to a life that feels so unfulfilled and superficial and empty of meaning and purpose. That's what psychedelics are about. And to that extent, nothing touches it.
Mm.
Nothing. There's nothing.
Let
And
me.
they were meant for us to eat them. I mean, the biggest irony of all this whole stuff we're talking about is the government making vegetables illegal. I mean, come on, like, does people wake the F up? Making vegetables illegal. My cannabis here it's a vegetable. It's green. You could probably live on it if you were hungry. And it's illegal. The government makes a vegetable illegal. I mean,
Well, this
and
is
people
a
accept it. They
no.
accept it.
I'm with
They
you.
accept it like little
It's funny.
lambs that I need that person to protect me from from God, from vegetables, from mushrooms, from ayahuasca, from I need the government to protect me from the deadly ibogaine leaf. And I mean this is programming at the worst level, right? I mean, just
Well, that's one thing that I want to come into with you, and I want to say this, and I want you just to respond to it because I don't know how you're going to respond to it. I have no idea. It's just something that's been in my head. Um, the idea that people view this as the escape, the Disneyland experience. I think the integration part has to come with some knowledge that you will experience something that is very outside of yourself, or a new way of thinking, a new way of seeing your
mhm,
consciousness in the framework of everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I mean the entirety of the universe, right? Like what
mhm,
are we? What is life? What is the idea? Why are we collectively here? What is the universe experiencing itself through us? What are all these things that people don't want to look deeply into? They'll go there, they'll take that. That's the ride, right? That's Space Mountain. They go on Space Mountain, and then when you come off of Space Mountain, nothing is asked of you. And I think that that's what's alluring sometimes to the Burning Man part of it, is because it asks nothing of you. But what I feel, some of the messaging that has to be adopted in consciousness expansion, mind expansion, curiosity expansion, is what is the responsibility that you now have, having seen this and experienced it? What responsibility do you have to perpetuate new ways of thinking
mhm,
in the world once
mhm,
you come back from that? And we never really talk that much about the responsibility aspect. We never tell
mhm.
people, now that you've seen this, you are part of the project, right? We don't typically build in
Right.
that way. But I think that's the direction that we're moving. If I'm if
Yeah.
I'm right.
Well, it's funny you say that because we had a ceremony on Saturday here in Los Angeles, and usually at the end everybody gets to talk a little bit, and we bring it back around, and what came up for me, um, And there was a wide variety of people there, all different levels of their work with psychedelics, different levels in age, very mixed group. And it just came out of me that the next step after that, after this day, is leadership. If you got something out of it, you have to become a leader. If that was your first day with a psychedelic, there's somebody who never had a first day. You can lead them. If you've only done one microdose and somebody just wants to learn about microdose, you can educate them and help them get more informed about it. So it's our responsibility. And you're doing it, Decker, just with the work you've done with the Psychedelic Institute and giving of your time and giving of your energy. And, I don't take that lightly. I see you as a leader who is affecting, hopefully people will watch this podcast and some of the things they'll listen to and go like, hey, I got to think about that a little more, or yeah, get it, like feeling, connection to you feel the same way I do. But that's what came up for me was like, when you leave here tonight and go home, my greatest prize for me for being involved with this would be is if you now were a leader, because that's how we're going to change the world. 10 million people took microdose last year, according to the Rand Corporation. 10 million people leading 10 other people. That's a third of the United States. Right? I mean, the numbers, if we all became leaders, we could change the world. We could do it. It's possible. It's possible. But those 10 million people didn't know they were leaders. They thought they were just doing some fun stuff or trying something or trying to get rid of anxiety or whatever their intention was. They've ended up as a leader.
And that's the thing, saying leader, even with the way that our society has crystallized these ideas, linguistics is a very, very powerful tool in our world, and the definitions that we assign to words, and the number one way that that's assigned in our society, leadership, leader, makes you feel like that title is imbued with authority and control. And that's not necessarily what we're talking about. At least I don't believe it is. When I use that term, I'm using it in the way like somebody has a torch and they're leading you through the cave. It is somebody who is helping you and guiding you in a direction, but it's a more peer-based idea of leadership. It's not the idea that a leader is above you in a hierarchy.
No, I would go back and look it up after we're done today. The definition of leadership has nothing to do with control. It's pointing
I agree.
people.
Yeah.
It's pointing or directing people into a certain direction. Pointing and leading, pointing people. That's not telling people what to do. So even that's a corruption of even the real definition of what leadership is. It's pointing them in a certain direction to achieve a certain type of goal. That's the definition paraphrase you're going to find if you look it up.
Mm-hmm.
So that has nothing to do with control.
But yet we have these systems which perpetuate those corrupted definitions, those ways of thinking. And, we have to start breaking all of that down from, the linguistic level, the systems we operate inside of. And people might hear that and go, well, you just want chaos. No, I'm not looking for chaos. I'm just looking to, stop us from continuing to hurt ourselves and the other living creatures that are on this planet by benefiting the, for lack of a better word, greed of a very few people who are benefiting from the systems as they stand.
Right.
I want everybody to be able to participate in the incredible enjoyment, pleasure, and bounty and riches of the world, where right now the systems are set up like an inverse funnel.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. I think we covered. It's amazing how unique this podcast was today, because I didn't coming into it. I wasn't thinking about leadership in the psychedelic era. I was thinking more about leadership of my 20, 25 years of experience. But now it was really great to go deeper into that. And, um, and I hope some people on this call today, on this podcast, they hear the message, if they benefited from psychedelics, to help other people with it, to, access it, to guide them, to, explore it. Because I really don't think there's any hope without it. I think civilizations go extinct. We know that. And we're heading there. No, we're definitely heading there. There's no question about it. And it wouldn't be the end, as far as God, if we all went extinct, there wouldn't be that much of a loss on the planet, in the universe, if human beings went extinct. So it's not the end of the world by any means. We're just one manifestation of the divine in an animal form. But, it's infinite. So bye bye, human Earth. I'm sure there's a million other Earths, or billion or trillion, or, our minds can't even uh, gather around what is that,
But
one of
it's
the
also
interesting.
not a it's also not a foregone conclusion. And I think that if we are going to look at different timelines as we game that out, and possibilities, one way to explore that with us is to come to Spring Awakening. So,
Yeah.
Paul, why don't you tell us, when is Spring Awakening? If you're in California, you've got to come and check this out. Where can people find out about it, buy
Yeah.
tickets?
So they can get tickets at psychedelic-awakening.com. And that's our website. The event is April 17th and 18th here in Los Angeles. It's a 2-day event. The first day is going to be all professional development. So a lot of offerings for people who are involved with medicine or who want to get involved with medicine on the professional level. So how to facilitate sessions. There'll be business sessions for people who have currently either doing retreats or facilitating or doing psychedelic psychotherapy, all the different avenues. Um, that'll be on the 17th. That's Friday. At 6 o'clock, we have a big opening press party for the press, for the speakers, and that's always a big deal on Friday night at 6. And then the next day, Saturday, April 18th, is the kind of for the general public. But we have some great sessions, great panels on ayahuasca, ibogaine, microdosing, new analogs, what's coming down the pike, drug regulation updates. It's all happening on that April 18th. We have music all day on the 18th into the evening, all psychedelic oriented or psychedelic informed music. Great vendors with all kinds of psychedelic products that are quality, and it's just a big party. I mean, people come back again and again. We have people. This will be our fifth awakening, our first Spring Awakening, but our fifth awakening event since 2021, and they're just been amazing for people in transformation. We've seen it's meant to be a community event, and we succeed at that, and that makes me very happy. So our vendors come back again and again, and we have some great title sponsors. And I just think if you're interested in psychedelics, one of the most important things, Decker, and you're part of this, is community. That's what I found out in my own experience. That's what we had in the 60s that made us so powerful in the 60s. We stopped a war. We changed social institutions. We created new venues for music and art and ways to express that. And it all happened because of community. we were all talking to each other. We all knew about each other. We all were conscious about what each other's was doing, and that community supported everything. And that's why the 60s, I don't think they're a golden age at all, but they're reflected on as like a very special time. And the magic sauce was community. And I experienced it firsthand. And I know what it means. And we've got a great community. All you have to do is show up at Awakening and you're part of it. So that's our, there's no price for admission. We're actually going to be having our membership open up this year. But you come to an event, you're part of the community. You don't have to pay anything. It's just, that's the way it works. And if you're in the business, you should certainly think about taking a booth or speaking or something like that. Decker, you're going to be moderating a panel, I believe, correct?
That's right. Yes, that's right.
And we've got some great moderators, got great researchers, doctors, PhDs, researchers. But the community is so wise. You know, when you want to learn something about psychedelics, the community has the most current, accurate information than any white paper you're going to get on the internet. I'm, with no disrespect to white papers, but the community is already usually moved past it by the time it gets onto some, psychedelic press release. It's funny. It's almost funny, but we are the cutting edge. Psychedelic Institute, without a doubt, is the cutting edge. And I think we're probably the most prominent psychedelic community in LA now. And, we want to be that. We want to be that for everybody, a place to go where we understand each other. We have compassion, and we're learning. That's the thing. We're all growing. So it's been a beautiful journey. And if anybody's in LA, April 17th and 18th, all the exhibits and everything will be open the 17th. We have got some great workshops, some fun stuff happening all through the day, and great music, and great community. For me, it's just as important as anybody else. I need the community, and we all need each other. Really, especially in this area, we need each other.
Same. And if anybody is a reader of Mental, if anybody is a watcher of any of our shows, and you haven't had an opportunity to meet in person, come down, hang out with me. Love to get to know you, be part of the community, like Paul said.
If they want to get tickets, to go to psychedelic-awakening.com. And that's the full agenda with the speakers. We'll be popping a couple more in as we go, but pretty packed. I think we have about 25, 30 speakers, bunch of panels, great speakers. I mean, awesome. Know this stuff like better than anybody you'll ever meet. So you can ask questions. Psychedelic-awakening. I don't think there's an early bird. We're kind of coming into the crunch, but it's not very expensive. And if you want to come to the, we have a VIP ticket, and then you could come to the party on the 6th and enjoy that as well.
Awesome. And where can people get Getting High on Leadership and all the rest of your books?
Getting High on Leadership is available on Amazon. And then the series, if they like and they want to go deeper, is on YouTube, on Paul Karasik, Getting High on Leadership. And we have a channel. So you can watch that and catch it. And I don't know how people are finding it or what, but I run into it every so often. I run into somebody. I did the other day. I listened to you. Oh, you're the one. At least I got one. But it was a labor of love. And the idea is that the book needs some more exposition because it is written kind of a little bit Zen-like. And so I do a little kind of discourse illustration and go a little bit deeper commentary on each chapter with a good podcaster, and he did a nice job. So that's about it from me. I can't think if you get tuned into Instagram, that would be the other contact. Would be Psychedelic Institute, Los Angeles. And what? Okay, excuse me. That's our Instagram. Psychedelic _Institute. and then you'll hear about our local, we just had a ceremony on Saturday. You'll hear about our pretty much monthly events here. Also talks we do here in LA 2 or 3 times. If you go Psychedelic _ Institute on Instagram, that's our new Instagram. So website for Spring Awakening, and Instagram for the things we're doing currently each month here in LA and around the country. We'll announce other events that we're doing in other parts of the country. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our viewers, our listeners, our readers. We're going to be launching a new mental artifact club coming up on Patreon in the next couple of months. If you want to jump in on that, please do. It's going to be very, very cool. When I say artifact club, what we're doing is we are 3D scanning all of these interesting artifacts and fossils and things from all around the world, things to help to expand your mind. And we are transmuting them alchemically into new shapes. We're making pieces from ancient Egypt into things that you can put onto your desktop through metal casting and other methods like that. We're going to be releasing, I think, quarterly. So if you sign up, you're going to be getting like a new object every quarter. Very exciting stuff. So check out mental.space, MNTL.space, also phantomastronaut.com for all the ways to support me and my projects. Thank you again, Paul, for coming in. Make sure to come and check me out at Spring Awakening, as well as Paul and all the other great speakers and vendors. And I will see you out there.